They cut open my chest, took a vein from my leg and stitched it into my heart just to keep me breathing. And the only thing I wanted was for my own son to take me home. Not flowers, not tears, just a ride. I texted him from that cold, sterile hospital bed, chest wrapped tight like a coffin, tubes still hanging out of me. "I'm ready. Can you come get me?" You know what he wrote? "Call a cab." No explanation, no apology. Just 3 words that sliced deeper than the surgeon's knife. Then his wife texted right after, like salt on a fresh wound. "You should stay longer. The kids are loud. It's not a good time." Not a good time? I gave him that damn house. I signed my name next to his. I bled for this family in war and in peace. And now I'm an inconvenience? I stared at the phone, hands trembling. Not from the anesthesia, from the rage. I should have died on that table. It would have been easier than reading that message. But I didn't. I survived. I'm Jack Rawlins. I'm altmush 6 years old. And tonight, they're going to wish I hadn't made it out of that hospital alive. Because they're about to see exactly what a forgotten veteran can do. The taxi smelled like stale fries and wet coats. The driver didn't say much, just glanced at my bandaged chest, then at the VA hospital bracelet still clinging to my wrist. 40 minutes of silence, broken only by the crunch of gravel as we pulled into the trailer park on the outskirts of Billings. Home. Not the home I helped build for my son, but the beat-up aluminum box I've lived in for the past 5 years. The porch light flickered like it couldn't decide whether I deserved light or darkness. I unlocked the door with a key that had started to rust. Inside, everything was where I left it. Tools neatly lined on the wall, boots by the door, the folded American flag above the fireplace, the one I received when my brother Ray came home in a box. I sat down, slowly. Every inch of my chest screamed. But nothing hurt more than the silence. Matt used to worship me when he was a boy, would follow me into the woods behind the house, asking about my army days, pretending a broomstick was a rifle. Amanda came later, polished, polite at first. But the moment we signed the deed over, when I agreed to keep 10% and help with the down payment, her tone changed. Respect turned into condescension, gratitude into quiet hostility. I started noticing things. Mail I never received. Neighbors whispering about how I was difficult, how I chose to live separate. Lies. All of it. I wasn't separate, I was being shut out. The last time I showed up at their house unannounced, Amanda didn't open the door. She texted Matt to handle it. He came out, looked at his boots, and mumbled, "It's not a good day, Dad. Amanda's got the HOA meeting tonight." HOA meeting. That's what I'd been replaced by. I didn't argue, just turned and walked away. Back then, I thought that was the worst it could get. But that was before I saw the quitclaim deed. Before I realized they weren't just ignoring me. They were erasing me. It started with a knock that never came. 3 weeks before the surgery, I dropped off a set of new porch rails Matt had asked for. Just pressure-treated pine I'd pre-cut, sanded, and loaded into my truck. I didn't even ask for help unloading, just wanted to do something useful, something a father does. I texted Matt when I arrived. No answer. I knocked once. No reply. Through the frosted glass, I could hear voices, Amanda's sharp laugh, the clang of silverware, the muffled sound of a television commercial. I knocked again. Louder. Footsteps approached, then stopped. I saw Amanda's silhouette behind the door. She didn't open it. She turned and walked away. I stood there a full minute, cold air biting through my flannel shirt, the wood bundle at my feet. Then the porch light turned off. I didn't say a word, just picked up the boards, reloaded them into the truck, and drove back through the dark Montana back roads, headlights cutting through pine shadows and fog. No radio, no music, just the rhythmic clack of an old belt buckle swinging from the rearview mirror, the one Matt gave me when he graduated high school. I hadn't heard from them since. Not even when I told them the surgery date. After I got home from the hospital, the mailbox was crammed full. Mostly junk, but wedged between a power bill and some coupon flyer was a torn envelope marked Urgent Property Notice. It had a coffee stain on it. No return address. No stamp. Just a printed letter inside. At the top, Quitclaim Deed, Parcel 784140, Rawlins Residence. I froze. The document listed the property Matt and Amanda lived in, the house I helped buy. The house with my name on the mortgage, or so I thought. At the bottom was a signature block. 2 names were typed, Matthew Rawlins and Jack Rawlins. Both were signed, except I never signed it. The handwriting wasn't even close. And right there beneath the forged signature was a notary stamp expired, dated back 6 months. And the notary's commission had already lapsed. It was a fraud, a sloppy one, but a fraud nonetheless. My hands shook. Not from fear, from something older, heavier, a betrayal that crawled into your bones and didn't leave. My stomach twisted. My chest throbbed worse than post-op swelling. I placed the paper on the table, perfectly aligned at the corners, and stared at it. So this was the plan all along. Remove me on paper. Let time do the rest. Let the mail get lost. Let the memory fade. Turn me into a ghost in my own story. I looked around my trailer. Everything neat. Sharp corners. Military clean. I grabbed my old black notebook, the one I kept since Baghdad. I flipped past the pages filled with coordinates, radio codes, and names of brothers buried overseas. I wrote in block letters. They forged my name. Mortgage fraud. 10% interest. No notarized consent. Postal violation suspected. Intercepted mail. Investigate Amanda Rawlins. Then I flipped to the back cover, where I'd taped my VA caseworker's card. Beneath that was an old contact from my time helping with Montana's Rural Housing Board, Leah Merrick, legal aid attorney. I hadn't spoken to her in years, but I knew this wasn't just a family dispute anymore. This was criminal. That night, I tried calling Matt. No answer. Straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. Amanda texted the next morning. We saw your mail accidentally came to us. Sorry, we'll bring it by when things settle down. But she never did. And that's when the pieces locked together. The HOA meetings, the missing mail, the property notices, the busy responses, the silence after my surgery. This wasn't neglect. This was a campaign, and I'd been asleep at the wheel long enough. They had tried to erase me with a signature, but I've signed real things, combat orders, discharge forms, letters to grieving families. Their fake ink won't be the last word. 3 days later, the wind howled over the rim of the hills like it had something to prove. I stepped out of my trailer, bandaged chest stiff beneath my jacket, thermos of black coffee in one hand, that black Baghdad notebook in the other. Down the road, the Veterans Park was hosting its first winter cleanup of the season. A few volunteers, mostly guys like me, gray around the edges but steady on their feet, were dragging branches, raking leaves, and fixing up the flagpoles. Nothing glamorous, just the kind of quiet work that holds a town together. I showed up unannounced. Frank, my old service buddy and the park's unofficial foreman, spotted me from across the lot. His eyebrows lifted. Jack? Jesus, you look like they stapled you back together yesterday. I gave a half shrug. They did. You should be in bed. Matt said the hospital bed was more comfortable than his guest room. So here I am. Frank's face darkened, but he didn't say anything more. Just handed me a rake. And that's what I needed. No pity, just a job to do. What I didn't know was that a local news crew from Channel 6 had come by that morning. Human interest story. Veterans Keeping Billings Beautiful, or some PR title like that. They set up their cameras, asked Frank who they could interview. He pointed at me. He just got out of heart surgery, barely 2 weeks, and he still showed up. The reporter, a young woman named Julia with a polite but sharp edge to her tone, asked if I'd be willing to say a few words on camera. I thought about it, then nodded. They clipped a mic to my jacket, angled the camera toward the flags waving behind me, and Julia said, "You're Jack Rollins, right?" "That's me." "And you're just out of surgery?" "Yes, ma'am. Had a triple bypass not 2 weeks ago." "What brings you out here so soon?" I looked into the lens, let the silence stretch a second longer than it needed to. "I fought overseas for 22 years, came home with a heart that needed fixing and a family that thought I wasn't worth the ride back from the hospital, but I still believe in service. So if I can't serve in my own house, I'll serve here." Julia's expression shifted. Something in her eyes softened, not pity, but respect. I nodded toward the other vets in the background. "These men here, they don't ask what you can give. They just hand you a rake. That's the difference." She thanked me, shook my hand, and the camera shut off. That night, while Matt and Amanda were probably setting the dinner table under those pendant lights I installed myself 3 winters ago, my face came across their television screen. Channel 6 ran the clip during the 6 o'clock broadcast. They aired the whole quote word for word. I didn't say their names. Didn't have to. Matt called around 6:41. I didn't answer. Amanda texted, "We didn't know you were doing interviews. This isn't fair." I stared at the message, laughed once, then deleted it. They wanted silence. They wanted me to disappear quietly, like some dog that wandered too far from the yard and forgot its way back. But they forgot something. I served in places where silence got men killed. I learned to speak with purpose, to write everything down, to know the difference between being loud and being clear. That news clip didn't just get attention from Matt and Amanda. It reached people who'd stopped seeing me as the old man in the trailer, HOA members, neighbors. Even a retired judge who lived 2 streets over called Frank the next day and asked for my number, and Frank, God bless him, handed me something better. A voice. He offered me a seat on the local Veterans Council Advisory Board. Just a few meetings a month, mostly ceremonial. But it came with visibility and legitimacy. And it meant one thing. If they thought I'd be quiet about what they tried to pull with that forged deed, they were about to be real disappointed. So no, I didn't shout. Didn't show up banging on Matt's door demanding answers. I just kept showing up in places they couldn't ignore. That's how a man fights without raising his voice. That's how a soldier reclaims ground one step at a time. The call with Leah Merrick didn't last long. 10 minutes, tops. But it was enough to light a fire in my chest that burned hotter than anything I'd felt since coming home from Iraq. She didn't need much from me, just the scanned copy of the deed, a photo of my signature from my driver's license, and the date the document was supposedly signed. I sent everything that night. By morning, she called back. Her voice, usually calm and composed, had a sharp edge. "Jack," she said, "that signature on the quitclaim, it's not just forged, it's not even a good one. The notary they used lost their license 3 years ago." I didn't say anything, just gripped the phone tighter. "And the property transfer," she continued, "was pushed through the county recorder's office with a rush fee. It was done deliberately to avoid scrutiny. Someone wanted that deed moved fast." I swallowed hard. "They filed it," she said, "on the same day you were in Billings General, unconscious from anesthesia." I blinked. My mouth went dry. That was the surgery date. Matt had known. Amanda, too. They knew exactly when I'd be out of commission, and they'd used my vulnerability to pull the rug out from under me. "La post. I can take this to the county, and we can file a motion to void the deed. But I need you to be ready for a fight. This won't just be about property. It'll get ugly." "I was in Fallujah," I said. "I know ugly." She gave a half laugh. "Okay, then let's suit up." The next step was to pull the original filing records from the assessor's office. Leah met me at the clerk's window 3 days later. We both had copies of our IDs. Hers was a crisp leather legal folio. Mine was my military-issued wallet, duct-taped at one corner. The clerk, a young guy with too much gel in his hair and too little patience, printed the forms without a word. Just handed them over, eyes barely meeting mine. I opened the folder. There it was again. My name, in shaky, almost childish cursive. Jack Rawlins. Except I never sign like that. Never loop my R, never slant to the left. Below that was Amanda's signature as witness. She'd signed for both of us. And the notary block? Not just expired, falsified. The woman listed as the notary had died 2 years earlier. Cancer, according to an obituary Laya found in less than 5 minutes. This wasn't just backstabbing. This was a coordinated erasure. Amanda had taken every step to remove me legally, socially, and emotionally without ever looking me in the eye. It explained everything. The HOA meetings I wasn't invited to, the missing mail, the porch lights shutting off, the sudden coolness from the neighbors who used to offer me coffee. They were told I'd walked away. Or worse, that I was unstable. Matt was complicit. Maybe not the architect, but the coward who nodded along while Amanda sketched out the blueprint. Laya closed the folder, lips pressed into a hard line. "This is criminal," she said. "Flat-out fraud. What do we do now?" I filed to void the deed. If the court agrees, the transfer gets nullified, and we'll press charges if they push back. You're still listed as 10% owner. That gives you standing. What if they fight it? She looked me dead in the eye. Then we make it public. That night, I sat in my trailer, a stack of legal forms beside me, and stared at a photo on the wall. Matt, age 9, in his Boy Scout uniform, saluting me in front of our old house. The house I was now locked out of. I wanted to believe some part of him still remembered that day, but the papers in front of me said otherwise. I got up, poured a glass of water, and took a single aspirin. The heart still hurt. The chest still pulled when I reached too far. But the pain was useful now. It kept me sharp. I wrote one more note in the Baghdad notebook. They didn't just steal my house. They tried to steal my name. But I've still got my voice. And I'm not done. The next HOA meeting was scheduled for the 3rd Thursday of the month, held inside the newly built community center, the same one I had helped wire back in 2016 as a volunteer contractor when funding fell short. Back then, I remember standing in that same room with a toolkit in one hand and a thermos in the other, joking with neighbors, never thinking I'd one day be walking in as a pariah. But this time, I wasn't alone. Leah Merrick walked beside me in a charcoal gray blazer and boots that echoed on the linoleum like a judge's gavel. She didn't carry a briefcase, just a file folder under one arm, marked with a single label. Rawlins v. Rawlins. The room was already packed. Rows of neatly dressed residents, HOA board members lined at the long folding table, and in the far left corner, Matt and Amanda. Amanda was perched like she was born to command the room. Designer blouse, crisp posture, one ankle crossed over the other. Her nails gleamed red against a white notebook. Matt sat beside her, smaller somehow, shrinking into his blazer like he wasn't sure if he belonged anywhere anymore. The president of the board, Mr. Harris, retired Air Force, square-jawed, still had the buzz cut, tapped the mic. "Meeting will come to order. Last month's minutes approved. Tonight, we've had a request for a homeowner statement, followed by a petition discussion. Jack Rawlins, you're up." I walked slowly to the mic. My chest still tight, but the breath was steady. I didn't raise my voice. "My name is Jack Rawlins. I've lived in this neighborhood for 32 years. I served in the U.S. Army for 22 of those, helped build homes here, taught kids how to change tires in the cul-de-sac, ran the barbecue fundraiser when we lost the Allen boy in Afghanistan. You all know me." A quiet ripple moved through the room. Nods. A few downturned eyes. "But in the last 6 months, some of you were told I'd moved away, that I was sick, that I signed over my part of my house willingly. I turned toward Amanda, held the silence. I did not. Leah stepped forward, holding up the deed. This document, she said clearly, was filed with a forged signature, using a notary stamp from a deceased agent. The county is now reviewing a motion to invalidate the transfer. But we're here tonight for something more important than legal jargon. She placed the file on the table in front of the board members. This neighborhood prides itself on honor, on respect. You all received a petition last week to ban Mr. Rawlins from attending HOA meetings and community events. Whispers. Movement. Someone in the back gasped softly. Yes, she said firmly, turning toward Amanda now. Initiated by Amanda Rawlins, citing disruptive behavior and reputation damage. A woman in the second row looked over at Amanda and whispered, "You did what?" Amanda's face turned hard, but her fingers twitched against the notebook. I stepped forward again. "I didn't come here to be dramatic," I said, "but I will not be erased. Not from my house, not from this street, not from this community." Mr. Harris leaned into the mic. "Thank you, Jack. That's more than enough. And let me be clear. You are not banned from this or any future HOA meeting." A murmur of approval rolled through the chairs. Someone clapped. Then another. And another. Amanda stood up suddenly. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "You're all being manipulated by some sob story. That house was ours. He was unstable. He couldn't even—" Harris raised a hand. "That's enough, Mrs. Rawlins. You'll have a chance to speak if you choose, but you won't interrupt again." Amanda's jaw clenched. She sat down, furious and red-faced. Matt kept his eyes locked on the floor. The meeting ended 20 minutes later, but the real shift had already happened. Neighbors who hadn't spoken to me in months came up. Some shook my hand. One offered a pie. Another Mrs. Dunn from 2 streets over simply said, "I'm sorry, Jack. We didn't know. I didn't need them to know everything. Just enough to see me again." As Leah and I walked out, she smiled. "That," she said, "was better than any court hearing." I didn't smile back. "They're going to push back harder now," I said quietly. "Let them," she replied. "You just reminded everyone what integrity looks like." It was just past 10 p.m. when I heard the knock at the trailer door. 3 slow taps. Not hurried, not hesitant either. Just deliberate. I was halfway through my nightly routine, blood thinner taken, a lukewarm heating pad over the chest scar, my old Army field journal resting beside the television remote. At first I figured it was Frank dropping off some leftover chili again. He always made too much. But when I opened the door, it wasn't Frank. It was Casey, my daughter. She hadn't stood on my doorstep in almost 8 years. Her dark hair, once dyed cherry red and worn in rebellion, had grown out into natural chestnut curls, pulled into a loose braid. Her eyes, still the same soft hazel as her mother's, were puffy like she'd been crying for miles. She didn't say anything right away. Neither did I. "Can I come in?" she asked finally, voice barely above a whisper. I stepped aside. Inside, the air was thick with unsaid things. The soft hum of the space heater filled the silence as she sat stiffly on the edge of the couch. I lowered myself into my chair, the springs groaning under the familiar weight of scar tissue and disappointment. Casey looked around. "You still keep that flag," she said, nodding to the folded stars and stripes encased above the mantel. "It's not a decoration," I replied quietly. She nodded. "I know." A few more seconds passed. Then I asked, "What brought you back?" She swallowed. "Mom called last week. Said she saw you on television. Said you looked smaller." "I've shrunk," I said, trying to keep it light. "Heart took a beating. Then your brother and his wife finished the job." Casey flinched. "I'm not here because of them," she said. "I'm here because I should have come sooner." I stared at her. The girl who ran off at 22, chasing a life free of rules, free of curfews, free of the military base mindset I raised her in. The girl who once screamed, "You only care about honor, not people," before slamming a door that stayed shut for the better part of a decade. And yet, here she was, older, tired. But here, she reached into her bag and pulled out a worn envelope, edges crumpled, corners frayed. "I wrote this 3 years ago," she said, "but I never mailed it. I was scared you'd throw it out." I took the envelope slowly, hand steady. Inside was a letter, handwritten in looping, messy cursive. "Dad, I know I let you down. I know you don't owe me anything, but I still carry the discipline you gave me in my bones. I still fold my shirts the way you taught me. Still check my car tires every Sunday. I hated the rules back then. I didn't understand they were love in uniform. If you ever forgive me, I'll be here. Casey." When I looked up, her eyes were brimming. "I saw that clip on the news," she said. "I didn't recognize your voice at first, but then you said the line about service, and I remembered." She wiped her nose. "I remembered you waking up at 5 a.m. every morning to raise the flag. No matter the snow, no matter the heat." I leaned back. There was so much I could have said, but I chose quiet, because the moment didn't need anger. It needed grace. "You know," I said, "when I was recovering, I thought a lot about ghosts. Not the kind in the walls, the kind we bury while breathing." She nodded. "I was one of those." "Maybe," I said, "but you walked back through the door. That counts." She laughed quietly, a choked, broken thing. "Matt and Amanda don't know I'm here. I don't talk to them much. Haven't for years." I figured. They always acted like they were better than the rest of us. When Mom got sick, Amanda barely showed. "You were the one sleeping in the hospital chair every night." I nodded. "They only remember what suits them." A pause. Then Casey looked up. "If there's a way I can help, I want to. Not to make it up to you, just to stand beside you this time." I stared at her, long and hard. Then I motioned to the chair beside me. "Then sit. Let's talk. Not about court, not about deeds, just about us." And we did. For the next hour, we didn't fix everything, but we started patching. Not with apologies, with stories. The first time she fell off her bike. The time I nearly burned Thanksgiving turkey. The memory of her mother humming "Take Me Home," country roads, while folding laundry. Sometimes the road back isn't paved with justice. Sometimes it's paved with memory, with presence, with blood that remembers where it came from even after years of silence. 3 days after Casey returned, the letter from the county clerk arrived. I opened it slowly, sitting by the kitchen window where the sun always hit hardest around 10 a.m. The paper was thin, the kind that tears easy. But the words printed on it were heavy. "Petition to void title transfer approved. Deed reverted to original owner Jack Rollins. Legal notice issued for further investigation of fraud." There it was. My name, back where it belonged. The house. Mine again. I should have felt victorious. But justice always comes with a receipt. And that receipt showed up a few hours later in the form of Matt standing outside my trailer, eyes bloodshot, holding a half-empty coffee from the gas station and a crumpled hoodie that looked like it hadn't been washed in days. I didn't invite him in. He didn't ask. He just stood there, on the gravel, like a boy waiting for the school bus that was never coming. "Dad?" he muttered, voice cracking. It got real bad real fast. I didn't answer. Just leaned against the doorframe. "Amanda's gone," he said. "Packed up the kids and flew to her sister's in Oregon." "She take the furniture too?" I asked, dry. Matt shook his head. "Numbered just their stuff. And the savings." I tilted my head. "The joint account?" He nodded. "Cleaned out." For a moment, the silence between us wasn't angry. It was pathetic. "I got fired from the firm last week," he added. "They found out about the fake notary. R got nervous, said they had to protect the company image. You forged my name, I said, voice calm. You handed Amanda the pen. Don't act surprised now that she used it against you too. He looked up, eyes disparate. I didn't think it'd go that far. I didn't want to lose the house. We were drowning in bills. Amanda said if we could take over your share, refinance, maybe flip it later. I stepped forward, just 1 foot on the step between us. And when I was in the hospital, when I needed a ride home, he opened his mouth, closed it. Nothing came out. I bled for this country, I said. I built that house with calloused hands and prayers you used to say at bedtime, and you stood by while your wife erased me like a name off a whiteboard. I was scared, he whispered. You should be, I replied. Not because of me, but because you let her hollow you out piece by piece. You don't even know what you lost. He looked away. Then, like a man falling without realizing it, he crumpled to the step. Saturday down, elbows on knees, face buried in his palms. I've lost everything, he muttered. Not everything, I said after a pause. You've still got your name. Barely. That's when Casey stepped outside, her arms crossed. She left you? She asked flat. Matt looked up. Don't look so shocked, she said. You thought she was going to ride this lie to the end and still kiss your cheek goodnight. He didn't answer. She's already under investigation, she added. Laya sent in the affidavit from the notary fraud. Amanda used a dead woman's seal. That's a felony in Montana. Matt's eyes widened. She might see jail time. She might see worse, I said, depending on how many documents she signed over the years. Matt looked like someone had turned off the gravity under him. He sat there for what felt like an hour. Then finally, slowly, he stood. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, he said, voice hoarse. No, I replied. You don't, but I'm sorry. You said that the day you sold my truck, I shot back. And the day you canceled my VA appointment by mistake. Sorry doesn't mean much without repentance. He nodded, lips pressed thin. Where are you going to stay? Casey asked. Matt shrugged. Motel. I don't have much left. I looked at him. My son, my failure, my own blood lost not to death, but to cowardice. And still, something in me, the part that stood in muddy boots holding wounded brothers through worse nights, couldn't turn completely away. There's a cot in the shed, I muttered. If you need a few nights to figure things out, it locks from the inside. Don't touch the tools. His eyes welled up. Thank you. Don't mistake that for a hug, I said sharply. That's just the old man in me refusing to let you sleep in your car. He nodded and walked off slowly, head down, shame heavy as armor. As I watched him disappear behind the fence, Casey came closer. You're kinder than I would have been, she said. I'm not kind, I replied. I'm just tired of cutting people off, and too damn old to carry hate full time. She smiled softly. Still, you did the right thing. No, I said. I did the necessary thing, and somewhere in that maybe was the beginning of something close to healing. I've learned something in these final years after the surgeries, the betrayal, the paperwork wars, and the silence that stretched too long between father and child. It's not the battles that break you. It's the betrayal from your own ranks. You expect to take fire in the field, but you don't expect it from your own blood. And yet, I don't regret raising Matt with structure, or telling Casey no when she wanted to drop out of high school and find herself. I don't regret teaching them to say, yes, sir, and to fold the corners of their sheets tight enough to bounce a quarter, because discipline doesn't mean punishment. It means protection, preparation. It means that even when the world collapses, when your name is stripped off a deed, when your ride home becomes a silence on the other end of a text, you still stand. You stand because you know who you are. And in this life, paperwork matters. Not for the sake of bureaucracy, but because without it, even honor can be stolen with a forged signature and a notary stamp. I keep every document now, in a box, fireproof, labeled. Not because I'm bitter, but because I'm wise. You see, honor isn't something you wear on your chest. It's something you protect with your actions, even when nobody's watching. Even when your own son forgets who you were. Even when your neighbors whisper, and your body aches, and you feel more ghost than man. I'm Jack Rollins. I'm 71 years old. I served this country with pride. I raised a family with calloused hands. And I survived losing both and found my way back to the one person who remembered what mattered. You want to know the secret? Forgive slow. Document everything. Love with boundaries. And never ever give your house away, even if your son swears he'll take care of it. Because homes aren't just walls and wood. They're earned, and so is peace.